guys, this is Anthony. In this video I'm going to be showing and discussing 3 flights I had while in Oahu. I made a couple pretty big mistakes and I was lucky to walk away from them, but they were a learning experience and I did have a nice payoff in the 3rd flight. So let's get into it.
And I should have gotten in shape before this trip.
So on our first day getting to Makapuu, we made the hike up and realized that the wind direction was a bit cross and the wind speed was pretty light. Now, being from California, we were visitors to this site and didn't know all the ins and outs, but in our judgment, it was a little iffy. So we sat on the hill, baked in the sun for a good 90 minutes or so. And then luckily we see someone hiking up and it was a local paraglider who introduced himself as Joe. And after introducing ourselves and talking to Joe a little bit, he basically told us, yeah, this is a flyable day. It's not perfect, but it's definitely doable. Yeah, a little background about this site. It's basically perched up on a little hill, and then behind that hill is a huge ridge that extends for quite a while. The launch itself is actually a pretty nice little spot, other than the fact that it's literally surrounded by power lines. And I'm not exaggerating, you can see it here, that you literally set your wing and build your wall at the base of the power line pole, like within a foot of it. So already that's pretty intimidating, obviously, and seeing the lines up there being not much taller than your wing is when it's above your head, I was thinking, dang, this is a pretty bad spot to be plucked or to lose control while kiting or anything like that. So already in my head, I was pretty nervous. Beyond that, once you launch, you have to make a quick right and cross those power lines. And you don't really have the altitude right off launch. If there was no wind, you wouldn't be able to do it. Rob, being the much better, more experienced pilot that he is, launches first. And I watch him and yeah, he takes off great. You see him flying over the power lines and he starts working this little area here. Now, this was something that I saw and was paying attention to, but didn't really think anything of it. I just saw him getting up, and once he got up to the cliff wall of the ridge, he was way up in the air. So I saw that and I was encouraged. It's my turn to launch. Again, it's going through my mind. This whole power line thing is scary to me. And I launch. Okay. Make my right turn. Cleared the lines okay. Was getting a little bit of lift in this rocky bowl area. I turn around and you can actually hear me say, am I going to clear this? Am I going to clear this? And it was at this point that I made my really big mistake. It was an assumption that basically if I just kept flying along this ridge, that I would get picked up. I was assuming that the wind would just come up this little slope, generate lift enough for me to get to that rock face and eventually get taken all the way up. But it wasn't happening. So you can watch here and I'll just let it play out. Bad. So yeah, there you go. That was my first flight in Hawaii. Didn't go as planned. I was pretty lucky to have that lava field right where it was, instead of having to go into the trees. I think that would have taken hours and a team of people to get my wing out, and probably would have damaged my wing to the point where I wouldn't be able to fly it. I didn't happen to get it on video, but huge shout out to Joe. He saw me go down into the side of this hill, and he hiked over and he helped me get the wing out of the tree.
Okay, this is a bit of a bad spot. It's like a fucking landslide. There's rocks falling. I can't get the strings unattached because it's like this really sharp pumice. So it's gonna take me a while to get out of here. Hopefully I don't damage my wing.
It was super steep. Like every step I took would make me slide down and get on my hands, and rocks would be tumbling down the hill. At one point, my helmet with my GoPro fell down, and it didn't stop. It just went all the way down to the bottom and dinged up my helmet, dinged up the GoPro a little bit. But luckily, I was able to just ball up my wing into a big mess, shove it into my harness, and make the hike down. My wife drove the rental car, took me to the LZ, and I was able to kind of jump in the water, cool off, and everything was fine. Rob continued his flight. He landed and helped sort out my wing, inspect it, kited it a little bit, said, "It's good to go, you got lucky." So yeah, all in all, not the ideal flight I wanted, but I walked away from it, didn't damage myself or my gear, and I call that a win, I guess. If not a win, then a good learning experience. Okay, so here we are on our next flying day. We're at the exact same site, same launch. The conditions just felt better today. Stronger winds, more consistent direction. And so yeah, we don't really parawait that long. We basically start gearing up. Rob launches, and he has to spend, I think it's 2.5 minutes or so, just working that one little area. And each time he would make a 180 and come over the launch, he was barely higher than he was the first time, making a couple feet progress or whatever. So seeing that was a little discouraging for me. I'm like, oh, it doesn't look as easy as it was yesterday for him. But yeah, eventually he was able to scratch his way up high enough to get to the ridge. But then he gets a message from one of the locals saying, "Hey, you're flying? Are you crazy? The wind direction is totally wrong. It's unsafe." So Rob decides, okay, I'm gonna land. So he gets down and lands, and at this point, I'm starting to pack up all my gear. But then a few locals showed up and said, "No, I don't know what that guy was talking about. The direction is just fine. You shouldn't have landed. You shouldn't have listened to this particular guy." Start pulling out my gear again, and I asked the locals, "Hey, do you got any pointers? Here's what happened to me the last time I flew here." And yeah, they all basically said the same thing, like work the area has lift, then push out further. Conditions were looking really good at this point. Rob launched, was able to get up. Joe launched, was able to get up. And after Joe launched, it was my turn, but considering the previous flight, I just wanted to see one more person take off and kind of work that area and just get a little more visual learning. And that was maybe not a mistake, but it caused me to wait longer, and by the time it was my turn to launch, the sun had kind of set below the ridge, started to get shaded out, and you could instantly tell that the wind was dying.
It could be shutting off. I mean, at any moment today, it could do that. You want to try it?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I mean, I hope it didn't wait too long, because it seems like it's kind of dying now, right?
Well, it's not as good as it was, let's say, for the previous guy.
Yeah, great.
And at this point, what am I gonna do? Just like pack up? No.
Dude, these power lines are just like the worst thing I've ever seen on a launch, so.
It is the worst. We're not proud of it. It's pretty universally despised launch. But no one's ever got electrocuted from launching this spot.
Okay.
So when I took off, did the same thing, made my right turn, got enough lift to cross over those power lines, but once I was in that little bowl area, I just wasn't generating any lift at all. Like I had my Vario on, it was really quiet so you can't really hear it, but it would chirp once every 3 seconds, and after the fact I looked at the log and I was getting like 0.7 max lift, sporadically. And so that just wasn't enough. And on top of that, I made a pretty high energy turn, which caused me to lose some altitude. So by the time I got back to launch, I was substantially lower, and I knew I wasn't gonna make it. I'm gonna have to bail. So I turn out towards those lines, and I cross over them, and in person they looked a lot closer than they do on video. It was kind of sketchy. But made some figure eights on the beach, had a landing away from all the people, and everything was good, other than the fact that I sunk out. At this point, I'm feeling pretty discouraged and questioning my abilities as a paraglider. 2 times in a row, didn't go as planned, and especially this time, seeing everyone else get up when I didn't was, really discouraging. I got to talk to everyone, and Alex, who had launched after me, told me, listen, I'm on a Xeno 2, and I had to use every ounce of its performance to climb up. You got unlucky, you're on a freestyle wing, and you didn't really stand much of a chance, so don't beat yourself up about it. That made me feel better, but obviously I'm in Hawaii, I came here to fly, and so far it's just not going as planned. That mixed with the forecast for the rest of the week was showing, hey, that might have been my last opportunity. So this was our final day in Hawaii. Our flight was scheduled to leave at noon, but the forecast looked so good that we decided, hey, we're gonna wake up super early and we're gonna make the most of it. So we get there, we hike up, Joe meets up with us, and we basically all just pair wait for a little bit, waiting for the wind to pick up. But after about a half hour, it picks up and we say, hey, we still got enough time to do a flight out here, land, pack up, get to the airport. Rob takes off, makes it up super easy, and after seeing that, I was super encouraged. I'm like, hey, this is my final shot. I gotta do something with it. So I took off in a great cycle, got picked up really easily, only made a couple passes, and I knew, hey, I did it. I'm finally at the ridge. And so yeah, from there, I felt really happy with myself and was enjoying this beautiful flight.
How freaking epic is this?
10 out of 10 epic.
And the conditions were such that we could have stayed up there for hours. It was so smooth and just perfect. But unfortunately we had our plane to catch, and so I had to cut it short. Had to come down after 33 minutes or something. That flight was a big redemption for me, having been so discouraged the previous times and making some pretty big mistakes. But it all paid off in the end. Even though it was a short flight, it was in Hawaii and it was beautiful, and we were the only ones up there, and you hear people driving by and beeping their horns. It was just super cool, and can't wait to go back and fly there again sometime. So yeah, thanks for watching. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't. You can let me know. Go ahead and like the video if you liked it. I wouldn't recommend subscribing because the content I upload is sporadic and varies in quality. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. So, peace.